Intro. Fire Emblem is the one game series that is always in Smash Bros, but it feels like nobody, has played it. I never played before this game, and this is still the only Fire Emblem game I've played, but I think it'll be like that because Three Houses is the most unique one I've heard from other people. Just was the way it does the story. It seems like the average player would have more fun with it compared to the other ones. So the idea behind Three Houses is that there's three houses. I know, a revolutionary idea. What this means for you, the player, is that there's options to choose from. You would think three, but there's four. That'll be explained in the story, but each house equates to a different story for post-time skip. So it actually matters which one you pick at the very beginning of the game. But in reality, the first half of the game is the same for every house, essentially. Only your units are different. But the second half is where it splits off into different parts that get you the different stories. I'm not covering all of them because, heck no, brother. I am not playing this game 4 times in a row. So for this video, I'll just be talking about the Blue Lions playthrough I had. I'll do the other ones later. After we defeat mercenaries in the first battle of the game in the story, and we get to the central church of Fodlan, Garrick Mock. Whoa. We pick our house to rep, which is the Blue Lions one, as mentioned before. We go through the process of teaching students, trying to get other ones to make the game easier, and teaching yourself new skills. This is a cycle throughout the whole game, but at the end of every month, it's a mission. It's like a battle mission. There's a lot of missions that act more like tutorials in the start, but the important one is the one that introduces monsters to the battlefield. Sylvain's brother, Miklon, turns into a monster as they try to wield a weapon, a cool weapon. It kind of shows that all the monsters we fight are kind of actually people inside. We also, in these missions, meet the underground cult of the story, which is called Those Who Slither in the Dark. They're made up of various quirky characters. We don't know any right now, but we also know about some of their adjacent people, like the Flame Emperor and the Death Knight. Yeah, these are real names, by the way. But also, some people try to steal a hero's relic named the Sword of the Creator. A hero's relic usually can't be picked up by anybody who doesn't have the right stuff to wield it, probably just a crest. But luckily, that doesn't apply to us, now does it? After we show how cool we are with the sword, we find Monica and how she was captured in the room where the sword was. Who is Monica? Red hair former student of Black Eagles. Don't look into it any further. Wi-Fi doesn't exist in this world. So we find her and we do the missions without her for some months, and she's not part of our house, so she doesn't matter. She's catching up gossiping with Edelgard about time and stuff. Now, a few months later, after the ball, the Christmas ball essentially, and stuff, we learn that 2 people have been hiding among the monastery as fakers, Monica being one of them. Their real names are Kronia and Solon. Solon is Tomas. And they try to kill us, but we fuse with Sothis, who is the goddess who has been inside of us all along. Crazy. Don't question it, it's not weird, it's just the Fodlan way. It's been like this since the beginning of the game. But during this, Geralt gets killed, which actually causes a sad cutscene. It makes anybody with a heart cry. Then the Flame Emperor is revealed to be Edelgard, but since we picked Blue Lions, we get a cutscene actually telling us about it, which is the best one, by the way, about how this is revealed. The others are like text, and that's it. That is straight up it. Also, Rhea is now a dragon, because there's an assault on Garrick Mock. Now, we get to the inflection point. The point in which it matters what house you picked, because we're in post-time skip now. Which changes the story a bunch. since we fall down a hole and then 5 years pass by. And all that. We wake up 5 years later, and Rhea seems to be missing. Who cares? Because we get to meet back up with the students at the monastery. Yay! Yay! Everyone has a different design now, and the world is tougher before we continue to fight the war alongside Dimitri. Everybody's leveled up. And Dimitri is kind of unstable just due to his visions of the dead people he sees and like him being able to hear them. But now we have to march to the bridge where we fight some people from the Black Eagles, but also some from the Golden Deer House. The Alliance has some traitors, but we have to kill all or most of them at the second Battle of Gronder Field. It's between both sides, and we just have to defeat everyone that we can in a more difficult version of the first version of the Battle of the Lion and the Eagles. That's what it's probably called. I kind of forgot. Dimitri also realizes with the return of the dew and us helping him along, he doesn't want revenge. He just wants peace in Fodlan. Aww. So we get to Ferdiad, which is the capital of Dimitri's kingdom. We recapture it from Camilla, and then we help Claude get the Imperial army out of the Alliance territory. So now we head to Fort Mercius. It's also known as the Impregnable Fortress, but we take it and kill the Death Knight there. So I think that nickname was untrue. Then we commit a coup in the capital and raid the palace to defeat Edelgard. Dimitri tries to offer peace after Edelgard is out of her monster phase. And that's not just an edgy thing, by the way. She just actually turns into that. But she attacks him, and so he has to kind of kill her. At the end of the game, right before the final battle, you kind of get to pick who you give the ring Geralt gave to you. I picked Dimitri because he was like the main person. But you can pick whoever you have the highest friendship with. It kind of gives you a bunch of options. But that's the story. As you can tell, war is a central theme for the Blue Lion story, but also the game in general. It shows the true sides of war and how people act during trying times like the war in Fodlan. People act irrational and act more sporadic, like how Dimitri acts after the time skip, because sometimes the murder of war hits people differently. That's what we see in the change Dimitri has. The idea of murder is never easy for anyone, and since the War of Fodlan is essentially a violent war, it's going to lead to murder for people fighting in it. Ignoring the Geneva Conventions broken by Garrick Mach, everyone you fight alongside has one goal: win no matter what. Kill whoever gets in your way, and Dimitri is the only person who really, truly embodies this. His revenge is built in two parts, and one of them is the system that he kind of like grew up in. His father and mother both died, and so he has a tragic backstory. And so after he went to the officers' academy at Garrick Mach. At Garrick Mach, he really learned to trust people and become more friendly with these people. He explains all of this to us in his various backstories and stuff throughout the game when we actually talk to him. But the inflection point for his friendliness plays at the Flame Emperor reveal. He just kind of snaps just a little bit when he is like told that Edelgard is the Flame Emperor, just because he thought he could trust her. It's also because he was haunted by this tragedy, and he thought he would get his conclusion by killing her and all that. After he didn't, he went into full revenge mode. He wanted to kill Edelgard because that's what seemed best to him. It's the only way for him to get his true ending he's always wanted, like revenge. It's essentially the eye for an eye method. It's just what he sees is right because he is blinded by his rage. He needs to figure out what he'll actually do to get that. That brings us to the second part of what his revenge is built on. It's built on the ideas and notions he has being broken down. It's a sudden realization, an idea, that he can't trust the people he thought he was able to. When you go from a mindset that most things people tell me is the truth, they have my best intentions in mind, to not being able to know the truth and lie and not being able to distinguish them. It kind of messes with you because that's a big shift. That's why in the post game, he kind of just stands at the rubble. Every time you explore, he's just standing at that rubble. And he's kind of starting to distrust us a little bit for a little bit before we meet up with the dude. So it kind of breaks his trust. And that's why revenge would be so satisfying to him. Because he wants to protect others, even if he has to sacrifice his own life for it. Because he doesn't want them to be betrayed like he did. There's many reasons behind it, but he snaps out of it because of others and like the constant motivation. That's how some people's revenge really is. You can't push yourself out of it, really. You just kind of have to. It just happens. You have to have other help by other people, by them giving you their hand and help you get out of that mindset of revenge. That's what happens with Dimitri, and he realizes this, and it's what his mind changes to at the end of the game, or at least near it. He wants to give Edelgard his hand so they can have peace. When Edelgard betrays him, he kills her, finishing the job. The job of revenge is complete, and evil is defeated after this. Luckily, Dimitri does the better of the two things people do when they complete a goal. They stop when they complete the goal. Luckily, that's what everyone else does as well, instead of going beyond what they originally were trying to do. Scope creep, essentially. This is also because of the collective idea of the Blue Lions post-time skip. The collective, which is every student in the Blue Lions house fighting for the same cause. It's a shared value that usually is expressed during war by the people fighting against the enemy. We all want this one goal. Let's try to aim for it together. In this case, the goal is to protect Fodlan and get peace. And to be fully united, or at least in a peaceful time. That's why when the game is done, the peace is made by the collective effort of uniting the continent under the Kingdom Alliance instead of the ownership of Edelgard's empire. It shows a clear win, and the side of peace has won truly, through all the hardships and the other stuff. Now, we can talk about the hardships later in the video, but there's something else that happens in war that's common. The idea of whatever side you're fighting for is in the right. I've played 3 houses before, and when I played originally back in 2019-2020, when the game first came out, I played the Silver Snow route, which is the church route, which is against Edelgard, but you can still see this theme that what you picked is what's right. That's it. It's a simple good versus bad, which isn't really the case. That's just how they frame it, like the characters. It's, in most cases, not the case where it's a simple good versus evil in wars, but in this one they frame it as that. Of course, there's many sides to the spectrum. That's kind of why war is kind of a spectrum. But it's hard to tell in the War of Fodlan, because if you side with Dimitri, which you kind of are forced to do, you are bound to believe you're in the right and he's in the right. He's stopping the evil that is Edelgard because she thinks she is right. It's an ideological difference. Whatever you're surrounded by is the narrative you're gonna get and absorb. That's why all these people who are clearly evil have followers. It's constant exposure to a story, which is what happens as well through things like an algorithm. You know, when you scroll for a while, or like multiple times, and when you bring some ideas you thought were normal to you, but you bring them to somebody else and they kind of look shocked. That's essentially the constant exposure effect at play. I don't know the actual name. That's just what I like to call it. It just makes sense. It's normal for you and bad or unseen by somebody else. That's what happens when you pick the house you're going to be in for the rest of the game. Whichever house you pick is the house you'll be exposed to the entire game. So you learn their values and all that. Like how with the Blue Lions, you learn more about the kingdom and its tragedies, and how they have to fight to keep its people alive. Some of them do, some of them don't. You kind of learn about each territory individually. through these units and these characters. That's the morals for them. But every house has different values, and those values are what you're supposed to kind of absorb from the story. You have values when you grow up, and they kind of translate to how you act and such. Kind of the same was the story, how we go from revenge and losing our values to reclaiming the ones we knew. Because when Dimitri was in the revenge mindset, it was a show of how he lost his values and all that, which is sometimes just how people act. Irrational, it was out his core values at hand. That revenge caused us to almost invade Enbar, the capital of the empire, earlier, instead of going for Ferdiad back in the kingdom. The idea of offensive or defensive. As mentioned before, the values of the kingdom are at the highest and just wanting to maintain peace for Fodlan. But when we go back for Ferdiad and save the kingdom, it shows the values we have lost and how the lost values have returned. So in that aspect, it's a good representation about how war can get to people. It's not just one way, it could be many ways. And sometimes even just like having symptoms or multiple symptoms. That's really what war boils down to in the end. The gameplay of this game is different from most of the Fire Emblem games I've heard, because this one acts as half a chess game with hot women, but also as a social simulator. If you've ever played Persona 5, or any of the recent games in that series, you'll know what to expect when you can spend time with people in the monastery, mainly just the students for some reason, don't question that. It's also easy to make the game a little easier for the post-time skip if you've played it before. You can recruit students to your house, and you can use them in your battles, even though you don't have to, and probably shouldn't, because they're really underleveled. They might be underleveled, but what it does is it lets you avoid having to fight them post-time skip, so it makes the game easier. So if you wanted to, you could just recruit everyone from Black Eagles in this game and fight literally nobody, I kid you not, except for Edelgard and Hubert. What the game does post-time skip is, if you recruited people from Black Eagles primarily, but all houses, you're supposed to fight the students, but if you have them, it just replaces them with generic enemies like monks or archers, whatever like class they were, I don't know. So I was able to do this with Dorothea from Black Eagles, and Ignat, Lythisia, and Hilda for Golden Deer. I never used Ignat. I'm not gonna lie, he just joined one day, but it made the game of chess a little easier for that one battle. Another thing that makes this game easier is if you level up your characters just a little bit over the suggested level, because I'm convinced that is a lie. The suggested levels for the mission at the end of each month, I'm convinced is like a liberal lie, because sometimes I'm 6 levels above and the enemies can one-shot you. Like, that has to be a lie. If you guys farm in games, it's a good thing to do in this game, because you may not be the recommended level that is really good enough. So head this warning, traveler, farm until you're at least 5 levels above it. That's what happened to me my first playthrough. I used the suggested level, so I was that, and then I got soft locked, so I never beat the game officially, but I was at the final battle. But that's my only gripe, was the gameplay. But overall, the game is fun to play. That's my opinion. You may have a different one, so play it for yourself if you want to see for yourself how it plays. But more on the social simulator, it goes week by week instead of like day by day, like in Persona 5, which makes the game more weirder with its pace, but you also always get 4 free days a month, essentially. If you have Switch Online, 1, I don't know why, but 2, you can see what other people did on specific free days. But I wouldn't fully rely on that, since sometimes the majority is tied or just purely wrong. That's one of the 8-axis questions, but at first you would think, oh, all of these seem really good. But once you get your professor level up, Explore and Battle are the only good ones, because you just get better. It's just clearly a skill difference in doing these. Because with Explore, you can just use Seminar, but more effectively. And with Battle, you can just farm. The rest, you just get materials. It's crazy. But those are, like, the good options. And that's the main new aspect of the game. In terms of things like hot chess, it becomes a point of strategy if you follow the lie of the suggested level. Strategy's a funny word. If you're talented and really smart, you could also just throw your most powerful unit into battle of 6 people and farm through that. That's what I call the battle rehab method. Because then your mini-me gets EXP. Adjudicant? I think it's called, I call it a mini-me. If we're going into specifics of gameplay, just go with whatever class is the easiest to get to and farm. You get enough, and then if anyone falls behind, set them to be your mini-me and farm a few battles, and they'll literally be all set. Although, some of the maps are also very annoying, but you would see that if you ever play the game and do the battles. On the deserts or the shores, anywhere with sand, they hate you, and I hate them. It's about wits and being smart and just analyzing. That's all the chess part of the game requires, so if that's your thing, I'd recommend it. I don't know how different it is compared to other Fire Emblem games, so that would have to be your own thing to find out. So good luck on that, overall. The music in the game, which is essentially the same for a lot of battles, but has some variety, mainly makes you feel like you're in the war in the year 1185 or whenever the game takes place. It's good for what it's meant to do, like most other media I've covered, but the music is just heard so much, so it's hard to say it's good now since it's ingrained in my head. It also makes you feel like you're in a YouTube video since some of these battle themes are used consistently through that. But it is good. Especially the battle themes for the ending of the battles and some other battles that are unique. Not just like, oh, I'm going to fight some enemies and kill them. They're good final mood setters because it makes you think, oh, I'm about to face a serious boss. That's what it's supposed to make you think, but I one-shot all of them, so I didn't hear them too often. But from what I've heard from the Battle of Gronder, they are intense. Whoa. They make you feel like you could die, or could have a unit die. So again, it's pretty good music, though the one music piece that gets to my head, that gets to your head as well, is the monastery music when you explore. You hear this music so much because it's just a loop, and there's nothing else. There's like 4 tracks for it, and it gets annoying. And it's enough to drive any person mad over a course of time. Like, we get it, bro. We're in a monastery. Good job for us. Congrats. I don't want a pat on the back. But also for the fact that everyone calls you their professor. The music makes you feel like a leader. I'll talk about good leadership in another video, probably, because that's a heavy topic. It is. But considering you were the person who controls the pawns, it's good music for the tone because it's more intense music. It gets your adrenaline pumping. It's blood pumping. Your heart rate increases when it plays. It's a mix of war and action, which makes sense for the tone of the game. So it's good. I just wish it was on Spotify so I could like listen to it, but I'm not getting the Nintendo Music app ever. So can't listen to it. In terms of numbers, the game is the best-selling Fire Emblem game, selling at least 4.2 million units. But that may also be because of Smash Bros. Byleth, being a playable character in Smash, probably boosted sales afterwards just a little bit. That's usually why Fire Emblem characters are added to Smash Bros. After all, to boost sales and to make the new game, or close to the new game, known and people want to play it. So it's probably still doing well for a Fire Emblem game, but with new players coming in, that means review numbers. Of course the reviews I'm going to be referring to are from day one. So not really new players, probably older ones, but who knows? You never know. On Metacritic, the review place for everything, I guess, it has an 89 out of 100. On IGN and Game Informer, it has a 9.5 out of 10. And on GameSpot, it has a 9 out of 10. Those are high numbers. Those are pretty positive reviews that mostly talk about the quality of the story and stuff like that. I just look at the numbers. It's, pretty high reviews. Maybe they probably liked it. Haven't seen a negative review of it, really. Because it also won, like, Player's Choice Award, I think, at the Game Awards 2019. I'm not sure about that, but I don't know. That's just what happened. So it looks like it's pretty good through that metric. Overall, Fire Emblem Three Houses is fun, but if you're going to play it once, now you know about the Blue Lions route and stuff. But it has a bunch of connections to other ways a war or a conflict can be interpreted. Like in the Black Eagles route, you can play all the routes and get different stories, since you kind of learn about how to play the game more and more. You know how to get more efficient at doing the best in the game, essentially. It's not the game that you should buy a Switch for if you don't have one, but it's if you do already have one, I would say you should get it. It's fun for the most part. If you like games like XCOM, I've heard, or like Mario and Rabbids, kind of, or anything like that, it kind of plays like that, so you may like it. But if you haven't, this is a good jumping point for anyone, so I would recommend it. But as always, play it to form your own opinion on it, because don't leech off of others' opinions. I would give the Blue Lions route a 9.2 out of 10, which is high, but the story was pretty fun. So with that, please like, comment, and subscribe. Pretty please.